Okay, I can kickstart. Then, hello everyone. My name is Ragda Zahran, and I'm here today to debrief you about the work that I've done with colleagues at Newcastle University. I'm at designing learning analytics project. I'm taking the method and the approach we've used to share with you and have a chat about possible approaches, any issues that you anticipate, any questions, any concerns, all of that. So I've twisted the title a bit from what you've registered, focusing on the human-led and LLM and RAG approaches for content analysis. Just make it a basic approach because I think I started talking about LA early on. So I'm focusing on the method over here. So just to make sure that we talk about the LLM and RAG, we understand what both of them. Can you in the chat, I think this is not a webinar, we can chat. Can you type in the chat if you've heard of LLMs and RAGs? And I'm sure RAGs is more common than LLMs. Please type in the chat if you've used it before. I'm reading the chat right now. Let's not make it like just a webinar, maybe a discussion, since this is the feature of this meeting is just also a meeting. So we can discuss, yes, I think some of us, Alex, Emma, LLMs, yes, RAG, no. So we might have been using them, not knowing what they are, or hearing about the applications, but not knowing the actual category. So I'm going to go on what LLMs are. So LLMs are models that we can classify them under artificial intelligence. They are designed to understand human-like language. How do they work? I think that in first early days when I started working with computers, because I have a different background, I have a pharmacy degree background. When I started working with computers in the 90s, I was hearing about like trees and how computers work and translating human language or responding to the keyboard strokes and the letters and numbers and put them together to come up with responses. The LLMs amplify this by going to databases of all possible human-like languages and even typos and mistakes, possible mistakes, to respond to us, try to understand this and to respond to us in a similar human-like language as well. So they are heavily used in chatbots, text, in language translations, in code generations. I've listed some of the applications for you over here. Very, very useful. And we have been experiencing a lot the use of LLMs. So AI for us mostly is chats and text. So LLMs are the fundamental tool that is used and the models used for us to be able to engage with AI. And then also the RAG, which is we've been also engaging with lots of tools that generate stuff for us, mostly pictures, just for us to understand how they work. So you write a text to describe what you want, you give it more context, more prompts, and then it try to pull some from databases to put something together for you and to generate an output. So it is also used in research, in customer support, and in content creation. Any human facing that requires generation, those two are very useful. What we've done in our work is we've combined them both, and we didn't combine them manually. There are engines right now that combine both LLMs with RAGs. And why they are combined, if you look at this diagram that I'm presenting, so LLM pulls what we type, what we engage, how we engage with the computer in inputs, try to comprehend it, and then respond back with text. But sometimes we want to generate more than just a response from databases. So if it passes, if what LLMs comprehended or interpreted passes through a RAG, it will help us, give us a response that is more contextualized and more like supported by other tools like multimedia. So it combines text with creativity, and it gives you more precision when you use them together. There are lots of tools right now that we don't see it, and it's just a black box. We just use an AI tool, and it combines both together to give you a response. It's very useful. It was very useful for us in our research. So I'm going to talk about the work that we've done at Newcastle University, and how this was very useful for us. So we've been in a phase where we wanted to engage more students in designing learning analytics. We know that students come in cohorts, individuals, and then cohorts, and the perspectives change over time. So we wanted to take a snapshot in a certain year of what a cohort of students would think, that what data and analytics specifically they think that will be helpful for them. If I remind you what analytics is, it is a process of gathering and collecting, and sometimes we don't gather and collect. Our information systems already do that. So it is a process of analyzing and processing that data about students and their engagement with our systems to give us outputs. However, that's not just a basic, simple process. We will need to define what data we want the students, what variables and what data we need to collect or analyze, and based on what we want to give back insights. And of course, there has to be, I'm going to talk about process of that. There has to be some sort of added value of doing so, not just for the sake of analyzing data. Data exists and it sits on our systems, and it has been sitting on our systems, on the higher education systems that we use for registering students, for providing them with content and material, for supporting the engagement with the university services all along. So we are now in the phase on, and it's been a while that we were talking about analytics. Because we wanted to take a snapshot of what the students wanted, we wanted also to maximize, as you see, in institutions that the student population is very high. Sometimes we consider Newcastle University as a medium-sized university, 28 this year, 31,000 students. So this number, you cannot take the whole population and ask them what they want. So you want a representative sample. And we did that in so many engagement with students. We took representative samples of students from all majors and departments, asking them what they want. Our finding from applying LLM, RAG, and a human-led analysis to what the students gave us, and I'm going to explain exactly what they gave us much more than what we anticipated. So our regular engagements with them, we spoke to them in focus groups, in surveys, in small meetings. It was our understanding of what they wanted was very broad and generic. So we got an idea of what they want. And that idea was not really helpful in deciding what variables, what statistics, what insights is going to be required, and how we are going to present it back to the students. So we needed more than that. We needed to amplify our analysis of what the students tell us. Also, we needed to maximize the population that we engage with because of our limitation of our staff, central services to engage with students. We couldn't engage with all students, even if surveys wouldn't give us what we wanted. So what we've done is, with a group of staff members and senior lecturers and academics, we've engaged with a bigger population of students. However, I'm going to talk about limitation of engaging with students before I say who was that population. So usually when you engage with students, ask them what data would be helpful for you, forget about data, what kind of tools and software services you want that would be useful for you. We need to engage with students to be able to provide them with tools and services that they satisfy the needs. The engagement with students is very crucial. We usually engage with providers, suppliers, we engage with staff members, but that's not really comprehensive. We need to engage with students to understand the perspective. The limitations, in my view, over the last 6 years of engagement with students within the UK, I found that specifically when it comes to the data, there is a lack of awareness of what is data and what analytics and what it can do for them. So they may not understand when you tell them what data, what analytics, they will take you to the learning management systems and the learning process. Put us the schedule, put us the courses in this format. So they will take you, and we've done that. We've done lots of sprints with students who eventually we had to direct them to tell us what data. If we leave them on their own, when we tell them what you think data would be useful, they will tell you, okay, put for us the schedule, put for us what assessment are pending, and the workload. We want to see how our workload looks like. So they will tell you about basic information rather than processed and analyzed data, what analytics is meant to give them. So the lack of awareness and understanding of learning analytics was a key challenge whenever we engage with students. The second issue is that you will have two types of students anyways at all time when you talk about data. There are students who are willing to share their data and engagement, which is like usually it's a very few population of students, because they think that they're willing to share because they want to get something out of it. And there is a population of students who don't want to engage, worrying about the invading their privacy and misuse of their data. So privacy and ethical concerns is also an issue. However, from a higher education perspective, of course, it is legitimate to look at student data to be able to help them. Similar to, for example, for healthcare, it's legitimate to hear the patient very private symptoms and like description of what they're experiencing to be able to help them. In higher education, we need to understand how students learn to be able to provide them with and make it a conversational rather than instructional. What we tell them how to study, we want to understand what's their approaches and then what their personal approaches to doing stuff, and then based on that give them feedback. So privacy, ethical concerns is also another limitation that is facing us whenever we deal with students' data and whenever we ask students about how we can collaborate and partner together to use the data. And then the perceived relevance and impact. So students don't see the value. And we also are challenged on understanding what are we going to do with the data and the insights that we get, the analyzed data that we get from analytics. How are we going to move it into actionable processes that we can use to react or respond, not react, to respond to the students' engagement. So lack of ability to perceive the relevance and impact on the learning to enhance the learning is also a limitation. So this, as you see, those red, it could be like from a mistrust to disengagement. And even if you implement it after you've engaged with a cohort that you taught about analytics, agreed with you on the authorized access and what we're going to do with the data, help them understand the objective, there will always be a new cohort of students who will need to, this is like make it an ongoing process. We will need to know what they are going to benefit from utilizing data and systems in general in technology in higher education. So mistrust, skepticism and resistance and disengagement, the lack of engagement is an issue as well after we implement analytics. If we don't engage with it, then the value of all the efforts that we put is going to be not realized. So this context led us to think about a specific population of students. Remember when I spoke about the use of LLM and RAG to analyze input? We wanted to maximize the population of students, but we were worried about these challenges, because the more you maximize the population and because you're doing this ongoing to if you're thinking about doing it on recurring basis to discuss it with students and promote awareness, all of that, you need to make sure that you are getting a means to analyze the perspectives they give you, because it's not going to be one time and that's it. You need to make sure that you have like a tool or a service to help you in the analysis and to go deep into the nitty-gritty of what the students are telling us. So it's not general broad perspective, because general broad perspective might not lead us to what the students wanted. Also, we thought about the motives. Why are we doing this? So why are we specifically going to engage with specific population of students? So we went to engage with data science students in a computer science degree. Those are not only students who have experience, like experts in the students' experience, but they also have data science background, computers, technology, but also data science background. So we've engaged with that population. And the reason we engaged with them is that we followed this process that I'm displaying in front of you here. We tried to set objective, we explored, we looked at our data. So we examined all this data sources that we have in the institution. We looked at the variables in these data systems. We tried to comprehend and prioritize, comprehend what we're going to do with them and prioritize, because we couldn't do all data points. There were so many data points. I remember at the point 2 years ago, there were around 12 data points that we can pull data from. Each data point will have, like, of course, sub data points within them. So and by means of data point, like a service that uses systems. So we didn't know what variables exactly that we wanted to pull from these systems. So data science students could be the mean for us. And also we combine them being students, data science specialists, and have that perspective. And also they were master's degree. They were like specializing. So they had their own perspective of what learning is. So to answer that, to fill the gap between exploring the data and preparing the data, because before you prepare the data and model it, you need to know what variable, what data you're selecting. You need to select the data, okay? So selecting the data was a challenge, and we needed some help from specialist students, data science students. And that, it was, for me, was a huge task, because if I approach data science students, and I'm gonna pick a cohort, which was around 70 students, work with the senior professors, senior academics, to pull something out of students. I didn't know how I am going to translate what they're gonna tell me, because of course those students will have like a very specialist skill and with their perspective and the way they interpret the perspective as well, and they communicate it to us, will need some sort of engine to help me understand. So I've done human analysis, not alone, but also with the senior academics, but I needed to use the method that I'm alluding to today, which is the RAG and LLM combined, to understand what the students have told us in their work. So what we've done is we've offered this as an innovation project for the students. 70 students in 12 groups. We put demonstrators to help them understand how they use technology. Sorry if the diagram has been not very clear. I'm going to talk you through it. And they went on a month of exploration, brought back reports. So the reports were massive, with all of the perspective of what good data would be and what models they propose use for us to understand or to benefit from their engagement with the information systems that we have at the institution. So after we've had the reports, I think we kept the reports in our possession for over a month before we started thinking what we are going to do with them. Initially we were thinking that we're going to read the reports, of course. So the academics had to read them to mark them. So we're going to read the reports thoroughly, and we try to find themes in these reports, simple content analysis and thematic analysis. But then eventually, the amount of information that we got and the variance of tools and approaches and models they gave us made us reconsider using an engine to help us analyze the data. So the process we followed. First of all, we've defined the research aim. We told the students, okay, we gave them a problem. We said the university wants to analyze, the university needs to understand what we're going to do with the data, students' engagement with information systems. So that was the aim of our work. And our aim from the research is to know the student perspectives, of course, and what kind of variables they are going to point us to. And of course, the data gathering, we've compiled all the reports. It could be, you could get a sample of the reports. You don't have to do all the reports, but we wanted to do all the reports. So we had 12 reports to analyze. So we gathered the data, and then we've identified categories and features. So we looked at each of the, of course, human-led. So we formulated some sort of questions. We set questions on saying what kind of tools the student have used, what kind of variables the student picked, what kind of techniques they, what is the perspective, what is the level of their knowledge. So we set some questions that I'm ready, of course, to share if you're interested specifically in learning analytics within your institution. And what kind of challenges the students face, of course, were very important, because we wanted to learn, these are specialist students, we wanted to learn from their challenges when we implement analytics, what challenges we might be facing. And then we conducted, based on these questions, we started classifying, grouping, coding, what we do usually with research. And we tried to think of it like an open-ended. So we didn't expect no coding at all. We just went through whatever the student told us and classified it. And then also we did a deductive approach, where we were looking for specific, variables. Were they looking at, for example, the grades and the achievements? Were they looking for specifically for the engagement with what specific service in the institution? So we've done both inductive and deductive, and then we put in parallel. Of course, we didn't use the outcome of our analysis. We put in parallel all the reports in an LLM, but we've replicated the same step, which says identifying categories and features. So we've put all the questions we asked ourselves into the engine that combines RAG and LLM, and then that engine was giving us back classified, neatly done thematic analysis. But it was really very intensive compared to what we came up with. And this is why I felt that this is extremely useful, because it amplified our human lens. And it is also helpful because we can replicate this, because that specific cohort is at a certain snapshot, the perspectives definitely are relevant to them. When we have another cohort, what are we going to do? We're not going to change our learning analytics systems, of course, on a recurring basis, but at least we understand the student perspective in depth, and it's not a shallow or general or broad understanding. So eventually we took the human-led analysis, we took the RAG LLM analysis, and we put it together. We parallel we put it through multiple revisions amongst us as the academics and myself, and we came up with what presentation of results. And you can see that I'm going to share with you the link to this board, which is it will help you access the link to the article that we published, where it shows the presentation and the themes that we came up with. So, and then we also did another milestone, which is it is an operational research. It's not academic research, but it is operational, because eventually we're going to use that. It is action. It's operational because we're going to use that for our services to customize our support to students with analytics. But we had to go back to some relevant research publications, articles, because most of the articles around analytics were from real world experiences with academics or researchers who've done work on analytics with students and with staff and within institutions. So we tried to comprehend in a discussion how our finding map to what is there in the research. So this process, what we gave a name, of course, qualitative content analysis of learning analytics, to understand student perspective. So by this, I have shared with you how we use the LLM and generative RAG together to come up with, I'm going to allude to the paper. Sorry, I think the paper is here, so a link to the paper. I'm going to share the link to this presentation with you, but the link to the paper is available, and then you can read about the findings and how we presented them, and about the details of the process. And also that diagrams, the framework is available on the paper. And I would like now to stop, I think 4 minutes earlier than, or 5 minutes earlier than I anticipated, and answer any question you may have about this approach. Okay. And you may use the chat. Sorry, I haven't looked at the chat while I was speaking. And it was just to answer whether you've used LLM and RAG, but also if you want to unmute, this is a very, very small group and we can talk to each other and you can ask me what you think of what we've done and whether you've experienced using those within a similar use case or if you anticipate using it in future work.
I have a quick question, if that's okay.
Of course.
Thanks for that presentation. That was really interesting. And sorry if I missed this, but so you were using the model for qualitative analysis. So like, were you using it for sentiment analysis of the data?
There were some analysis. You mean about the students' perspective, whether they liked or what's the positive and negatives of?
Yeah. I only asked because so I'm from University of Birmingham. We've been developing a model to do something sort of similar with the GISC digital insight data. And we've been training a model to try and perform sentiment analysis on the qualitative data, but we've really struggled with large language models in particular not being very good at the nuance in language for qualitative data. So I'm just wondering, what kind of, if you had any challenges of that and how you sort of overcame that. And maybe that's where the human approach, led approach comes in terms of having the oversight. But really interested to hear your approach on that.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a million. Yeah, that's very interesting that you're using it to understand like positives and negatives of student perspective of certain service or support, which we've done. We've used it a lot, and not only LLMs. We've used, of course, platforms that would give you that service and that feature. And I'm with you in that you cannot rely 100% on these models. You definitely need to interfere. I would say that we have several times run the same reports with questions, the responses, with questions, the outcomes. You need a human eye. I had to correct the results several times because I've done the human aspect. And this is why we're recommending always do a hybrid approach and don't rely on LLMs. I think they are premature. They're going to be mature at a certain point, but at the moment, from what we've used, of course, your interference will tell you whether the degree of the accuracy and whether it is telling you the correct. It is analyzing correctly the information. What I would say, for research, you need really to be as precise as you can. You're looking for the truth. But for operational services in higher education, I would say we didn't need the precision, we needed the depth. So we needed to know, of course, what variables are interesting to the students, like what, of course, data sources, what variables. So the depth was, for us, mattered more than precision. But I would definitely agree with you that precision matters a lot if you're working on research.
Yeah, I think it was, we used the qualitative comments through a chat assistant we built to kind of pull out themes, which is really interesting. But when it came to actually gauging whether things were sort of positive and negative, a lot of it depends on the question itself, obviously, and the model doesn't always know that. But then a lot of the time it was reading things as being positive, for example, but the way the language was written, it was, as a human, you would have said, actually, I would have said that maybe would have been negative or would have been neutral. So yeah, it's interesting to hear your insights on that. So thank you.
Thanks. And I would love to know more about what you're doing, because we are at a stage where I think we need to exchange where you're applying it, because we might need as well what you're doing. We've applied this specifically for the analytics project, but I'm sure that it's applicable to so many other work. It specifically was to engage with students. Thank you. Any other question or comment or ideas that we can benefit from? Please share with us.
I have a question, if I may. So thank you for the presentation. It was really interesting to hear about your approach. Are you sort of in response to the last person to ask a question, Alex, I think, are you saying that if you collect more views from students in some form or another, that you would still do the human-led thematic analysis and use the artificial intelligence models to look at it, because one gives you more depth than you get from looking at the human thematic analysis?
Yeah, very interesting question. I'm also questioning when we maximize the population, to what extent can a human being or would have time and efforts and have the precision and eye to be able to understand or analyze. It requires a lot of efforts and time, of course. So the more you expand your population, so this determining the size of the population that you are getting the information from is very crucial. So I worked with around 100 students at the very beginning, in groups, but I was doing the work very basic human led, and I found it very interesting, but I didn't go into deep what they told me. I was going into the most, critical points that they alluded to. And then I've done very focused work with around 12 students on sprints, where I've worked with them to design systems. And they gave me also a lot of work, a lot of perspectives. But when working with the 70 students who are extremely specialist, like they are data science, and of course they've completed degrees, undergrad degrees, so they had the student perspective and they have also the data scientist perspective. It was really, the amount of insights they gave us was really huge. So the more you engage students, the more difficult it becomes for us to analyze, to have a human eye, to look deeper. So determining the size of population that you are getting insights from and responses is very important for us to be able to provide the human support. At this stage where we are not sure about the precision of the LLMs and RAGs, it is crucial for us to continue interfering with these systems and teaching what we wanted to get out of it. So, for example, the questions, correction of information when it's not correct. So determining the population size is very important. And also at this stage, this might change over time. So at this stage, we need to continue interfering. So we need to be, reasonable about the size of the population. But as we go, perhaps when we are more confident about these systems and what they give us, the most important thing is we read what the LLMs and RAGs are generating, not taking it for granted and throwing it back to, the designers of these systems, but just comprehend it, read it, interpret it, and maybe summarize it.
Thank you. Are you able to give us any examples of where you were unsure about the precision of the RAG and LLM?
Absolutely. There was, when we've done human led, we were missing one of the group's tools and techniques they used, but the LLM told us that it classified all the outcomes, and it told that specific group number 8, it gave us that they've used tools, and it was very clear, very obvious it didn't. So because when I've done the analysis, it was missing. So they didn't speak about the tools or models that they have used, but the LLM assumed that it was there. I don't know how it reached to that conclusion. So I had to correct it, and we sent it back to it saying that there is no responses by group number 8. On this specific, there are no tools mentioned in this specific section. And oh yes, that was the LLM response. Oh, thank you for correcting me. So they are not yet mature. They will be making mistakes. So you give them reports. You think that they're gonna just analyze what's there, but they might come up with false information.
And do you have so if you have an even larger number of students who are involved in giving you inputs and ideas, do you have thoughts on how to quickly and easily detect the RAG and LLM responses that may be things that are made up?
specialists. We had a specialist, a PhD researcher with the academic team who is very specialized in AI, who kept on. I think there is a tool to run to figure out the precision rate on the number, the error number. So technically possible, but from a human perspective, if you go with a bigger group, a wider group, maybe you look for the most critical points that you're looking for. So what is so key to you, if certain points that are their decision critical points for you to make decisions, then I think it requires, even with a bigger population, interference, maybe increase the number of reviewers, split down the task for multiple people. So we were around 3 staff members, and we took it back to a bigger team, around 15 colleagues. But I think break the analysis down over colleagues and then run sessions to discuss the outcomes. If you go with a bigger, at this stage of premature LLMs with the and RAGs that have like still error rates, you will need more staff members to support.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for the questions. Any more thoughts? We still have time, but we can conclude if we think we don't have more thoughts to discuss. There is a question, Emma. Did you think that these computing students had typical concerns of an average student? The really interesting thing, thank you for asking. I taught students, computer science students, for over 22 years, and I always thought that they think specifically and differently than other students in other majors and other disciplines. But I did work before this research work, operational research work, with other students from multiple disciplines, like from health sciences, from engineering, from humanities. Extremely interesting that they have different perspectives, but they have complementing perspectives. So those specific computer science students, they are data science specialists, but they come from different disciplines. So not necessarily from computer science. It could be from math, statistics, we didn't explore the backgrounds at all. We didn't look individually what they individually gave us. If we linked maybe the outcomes, you're absolutely right. If we understood the demographics and the background of the students, our analysis could have been different, maybe, I don't know. But we disregarded intentionally because they came from different backgrounds. So data science students come from different disciplines. It could be from humanities, because business students also would be interested in data science. They're not computer specialists as such, but they learn how to utilize their disciplines. So we treated them as their perspectives as standard students, and because of the population, 70 students, master's degree, who were experienced in learning, supported by also demonstrators who are PhD students. We thought of it collectively rather than specifically linking it to the discipline. Absolutely. Good question. But we got a lot from them, more than what we could get from the generic students. That would focus on this user perspective. Those were thinking more of what variable, what tools, what models, with their understanding of the value of the data that they wanted. However, we've used a finite data set, which is published by Open University. It's not new. It's been there online for a while now. So perhaps if we gave them a pool of maybe bigger, also the data would lead the student perspective. So there are lots of constraints in this study. So finite data set, specific discipline student coming from open background, so many limitations, of course. So maybe if we run it another group, perhaps in a different discipline, these were in computer science but coming from different disciplines, I agree that it could be different outcomes. Thank you for the question, Emma. And yeah, I think with this, we answered all the questions. Yeah, with this, I will, there is a new message that's interesting. Yeah, thank you, Emma. So with this, I will thank you for coming. And I think there will be a recording available. I've shared with you the link. Thank you. I shared with you the link in the chat to the presentation, to the slides. Feel free to leave comments, please. It's going to be live. It's yours. I think this link is in view, so I might share with you and edit. There's no harm. We are all colleagues, and I could share with you a link that you can comment. Sorry. So this is, you can comment with this one. So specifically for this group, so please feel free to comment on any of the content. And there are a couple of links that you can visit on those slides. Thank you very much for your time, and see you in other sessions.